The mountain arena sprawled open to the winter sky, a coliseum carved from ancient stone and the ambitions of those who ruled this frozen world. Dominessa sat upon her throne like a dark jewel set in ice, her blue skin gleaming under the pale light of twin suns. Around her, courtiers in elaborate robes whispered and laughed, their voices carrying sharp as broken glass across the frozen air. They held goblets of thick wine that steamed in the cold, and their eyes gleamed with the anticipation of blood. This was the Christmas entertainment, though Christmas here bore little resemblance to anything Alex remembered from Earth. Here it meant spectacle, cruelty dressed as sport, and the casual disposal of lives that held no value to those who commanded them. Alex stood in the center of the arena, chains recently removed from his wrists, leaving red marks in their wake. His clothes hung in tatters, fabric that had once been a uniform now reduced to rags, barely holding together. His beard had grown wild during months of captivity, and his face bore the hollow exhaustion of a man who had seen too much and slept too little. But his eyes remained steady, scanning the arena with the careful attention of someone who knew that survival depended on noticing everything. Dominessa rose from her throne, and silence fell like a guillotine blade. She was tall, statuesque, her movements fluid as she descended 3 steps to stand at the railing. Her gown rippled like liquid metal, and her crown caught the light in ways that made it seem alive. "Behold our Christmas gift to ourselves," she announced, her voice carrying across the arena without effort. "This soft thing from Earth, this creature of weak flesh and weaker spirit. We have been told his kind once ruled their own world. Hard to believe, is it not?" Laughter rippled through the noble gallery. Someone threw an apple core that struck Alex's shoulder. He did not flinch. Dominessa continued, her smile widening. "But we are not without mercy. We shall give him a chance, this Earthman. A sporting chance." She paused for effect, letting the tension build. "Kill the beast that emerges from those gates, survive the encounter, and you shall have my entire kingdom. Every mountain, every city, every title and treasure, all of it." The laughter grew louder now, more mocking. Several nobles actually applauded the jest. "Of course," Dominessa added, her voice dropping to a purr that somehow carried just as far. "The beast has never lost. But do try your best, little soft skin. Try very hard." She gestured lazily, and a guard approached Alex, dragging something that scraped against stone. The guard dropped it at Alex's feet with a clang of contempt. A spear, ancient by the look of it, the metal shaft spotted with rust, the point chipped. Alex picked it up slowly, feeling its weight, testing the balance. The metal was brittle. He could feel it in the way the shaft flexed. One solid impact, and it would shatter. He looked up at Dominessa. Their eyes met across the distance, and for just a moment, something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps, or challenge. Alex did not plead. He did not curse. He simply stood there, spear in hand, and waited. The great gates at the far end of the arena began to open. They moved slowly, deliberately, the mechanism grinding with theatrical patience. Darkness yawned beyond them. The crowd hushed, leaning forward in their seats. This was what they had come for. The sound came first, a breathing, low and massive, like bellows in a forge. Then movement, shadows shifting in the darkness. Then it emerged. The Ursa Titan stood 3 meters at the shoulder. Its body was a mountain of muscle covered in thick blue fur that looked almost metallic in the pale sunlight. Bone plates armored its shoulders and spine, grown naturally from its skeleton like the armor of some prehistoric nightmare. Its paws were the size of wagon wheels, each toe tipped with black claws as long as short swords. When it opened its mouth to roar, Alex saw teeth designed to crush bone like pottery. The roar itself was physical, a wave of sound and hot breath that struck Alex like a wall. He felt it in his chest, vibrating his ribs. Steam poured from the beast's nostrils in thick plumes. Its eyes, yellow with slit pupils, locked onto Alex with the absolute focus of a pure predator. Dominessa settled back into her throne, goblet raised in a mock salute. "Begin," she said simply. The Ursa Titan charged. Alex had perhaps 2 seconds to process what happened next. The beast exploded forward with a speed that seemed impossible for something so massive. Snow and stone chips erupted from where its claws gripped and released. The distance between them evaporated. Alex threw himself sideways, rolling through the snow, feeling the beast's passage like a windstorm. The Ursa Titan slid past him, claws scrabbling for purchase as it tried to turn its momentum. It crashed into the arena wall, stone cracking under the impact. But Alex was not watching the wall. He was watching the beast itself, his mind racing through observations, cataloging every detail. The charge had been pure explosive power, incredible on the short distance. But now the creature stood still for 3 full seconds, mouth gaping wide, sides heaving. Steam poured from its open jaws as if it were venting excess heat. No sweat glands, Alex thought. The realization came crystal clear. The beast was built like a reptile crossed with a mammal, designed for devastating burst attacks but lacking the cooling system for sustained activity. It overheated quickly, needed to cool down between efforts. The Ursa Titan turned slower now, eyes fixing on Alex again. It began to advance at a walk, testing him, learning. Alex backed away, spear held in both hands. The weapon felt pathetic compared to the thing approaching him. He might as well be holding a toothpick. The crowd jeered. "Fight, coward," someone shouted. "Die with dignity at least." Alex ignored them. He was calculating distances, angles, possibilities. The arena was approximately 60 meters across. The walls were 4 meters high, smooth stone. No exits except the gate he had entered through and the gate the beast had emerged from, both currently closed. The noble gallery ran along one side, protected behind thick crystal barriers. The rest was open to the elements. The Ursa Titan charged again. This time Alex was ready. He waited until the last possible moment, then dove aside, letting the beast thunder past. Again it had to stop, had to vent heat. 3 seconds of vulnerability, but 3 seconds was not enough to do any real damage with a brittle spear. Alex made his decision. Instead of preparing for the next charge, he turned and ran. Not toward the beast, but away from it, sprinting toward the far wall where the mountain face showed a natural break in the stone, a gap in the arena's construction that opened onto the wild tundra beyond. The reaction was immediate. The crowd erupted in jeers and thrown objects. Fruit, cups, even jewelry rained down around Alex as he ran. "Coward!" they screamed. "Pathetic earth scum!" Dominessa stood at her railing, her expression shifting from amusement to something darker. Disappointment, perhaps, or calculation. She raised one hand, and from alcoves hidden in the stone, small flying things emerged. They looked like floating eyeballs, each trailing gossamer wings that hummed in the air. Biodrones, surveillance devices grown rather than built. "Let him run," Dominessa said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet gallery. "The hunt will be more interesting this way. I want to watch him realize there is no escape. I want to see the exact moment hope dies in his eyes." The nobles settled back into their seats, intrigued now. This was unexpected, which made it entertaining. Alex reached the gap in the wall and squeezed through. The stone scraped his ribs, tore his already damaged clothes further. Behind him, he heard the Ursa Titan's roar of fury as it charged the wall, realized its prey had escaped the arena. The sound of stone cracking, then the beast was following, squeezing its massive bulk through the opening with considerable difficulty. The tundra stretched before Alex in rolling white waves, broken by strange vegetation. Giant blue ferns rose like frozen fountains, their fronds crystalline in the cold. The ground was part snow, part exposed rock, treacherous footing. In the distance, mountains rose like teeth against the pale sky. Alex did not sprint. Sprinting would kill him as surely as the beast's claws. Instead, he settled into something he had learned during survival training on Earth, back when such things mattered. The wolf run, indigenous peoples had called it, a steady, rhythmic pace that could be maintained for hours. Not fast, but relentless. He controlled his breathing with deliberate precision. Inhale for 2 steps. Exhale for 2 steps. His heart rate settled into a sustainable rhythm. His mind cleared, focusing on the essentials: terrain, direction, energy conservation. Behind him, the Ursa Titan crashed through the fern forest like a living avalanche. Trees that had stood for decades exploded into splinters. The beast roared again, the sound carrying fury and frustration. It was built to kill quickly, to overwhelm prey in moments. This slow chase confused it, enraged it. Alex could hear it closing, the thunder of its approach making the ground shake. He did not speed up. Speed would make him tire faster. Instead, he watched the terrain, looking for advantages. There, ahead and to the right, a dense thicket of thorny bushes grew in a natural barrier. The thorns looked like blue needles, each one finger length. Alex angled toward it without breaking stride. The beast was 20 meters behind him now, close enough that Alex could hear its breathing, ragged and hot. 10 meters. 5. Alex could smell it, a scent like hot metal and musk. He dove into the thicket. Thorns raked him immediately, tearing through cloth and skin. Blood welled hot against the cold air. The pain was immediate and everywhere, 1,000 tiny knives. But Alex had expected pain. He had made peace with pain months ago. The Ursa Titan, following purely on instinct and rage, plowed into the thicket after him. The beast was too large. The thorns that only cut Alex impaled the massive creature. It roared, thrashing, and the thorns held like barbed wire. The more it struggled, the deeper they dug. Its fur, thick as it was, could not protect it from these natural weapons. Blood began to stain the blue thorns purple. Alex dragged himself free of the thicket on the far side, leaving blood and cloth behind. He looked back once. The Ursa Titan was still trapped, spending precious energy tearing itself free. Alex had bought himself time. Perhaps 10 minutes, perhaps 15. He ran on. In the palace gallery, projected on screens created from some crystalline technology that grew from the walls themselves, the nobles watched Alex's flight. The biodrones tracked him from above, feeding images back to the arena. "He merely delays the inevitable," Dominessa said, sipping her wine. But her eyes were fixed on the screen showing Alex's face. Even at a distance, even through a drone's lens, something about his expression bothered her. There was no panic there, no desperation, just cold, calculating focus. "Your Majesty," one courtier ventured, "shall we send the hounds? They could end this quickly." "No," Dominessa said sharply. "I gave my word. One man, one beast. Let it play out." The courtier bowed and retreated. Dominessa leaned forward, watching. On the screen, Alex reached a stream, barely more than a trickle of water cutting through ice. He dropped to his knees and drank deeply, cupping the freezing water to his mouth. Then he splashed his face, his arms, cleaning the blood from the thorn cuts. Not all of them, but enough to stop the worst bleeding. One of the biodrones drifted lower, its eyeball rotating to focus on Alex's face. He looked up at it, water dripping from his beard. His eyes met the lens, met Dominessa's gaze across the distance and technology. He did not look afraid. He looked like a man solving a problem. Dominessa felt something unfamiliar curl in her stomach. Uncertainty? Surely not. The sun began its descent. On this world, with its twin suns setting in sequence, twilight came in stages. The first sun dropped behind the mountains, and the temperature began to fall. The second sun followed an hour later, and the cold became deadly. Alex felt it immediately. The water on his skin froze into a thin crust. His breath came in clouds. The wet rags he wore turned stiff with ice. He kept moving because stopping meant death. His fingers began to numb. His face felt tight, skin on the verge of frostbite. Behind him, the Ursa Titan had freed itself from the thorns and resumed the hunt. But its movements had changed. The beast was slowing. Each step became heavier. Its breathing grew labored in a different way, not from heat exhaustion now, but from the cold seeping into its reptilian biology. Its metabolism was dropping, responding to the temperature like a lizard entering hibernation. Alex noticed this. He noticed everything. His survival depended on it. Most prey at this point would run until they dropped, would sprint away into the darkness and freeze or collapse from exhaustion. But Alex was not most prey. He was human, and humans were persistence hunters. Humans had hunted mammoths to extinction not by being faster or stronger, but by being relentless, by understanding their prey better than the prey understood itself. So Alex did something that looked insane. He began to circle. He did not run away from the beast. He maintained distance, yes, but he circled back toward where the Ursa Titan had stopped, confused by the dropping temperature. Alex deliberately broke branches. He left obvious tracks in the snow. He made noise. Every time the beast began to settle down, to let its metabolism slow into the hibernation state that would save it through the deadly night, Alex appeared again, shouting, throwing stones, forcing the creature to respond, to move, to burn energy it could not afford to burn. The beast roared in confusion and rage. It charged, but the charges were slower now, less focused. Its body was fighting itself, part of it trying to shut down to conserve heat, part of it responding to the threat that would not go away. Hour after hour, Alex kept the beast moving. He was freezing himself. His lips turned blue. His hands could barely feel the rocks he threw, but he could see the beast weakening faster. It was larger, needed more heat, had fewer reserves in this cold. Dominessa watched from her heated gallery, wrapped in furs now. Her courtiers had grown quiet. What had been entertainment had become something else, something uncomfortable. "He is torturing it," someone whispered. "He is surviving," Dominessa corrected, but her voice was soft, thoughtful. The full dark came. Both suns gone. The temperature plummeted to 40 below zero. Stars appeared in numbers that boggled the mind, the sky turning into a field of ice fire. Alex knew he had made a mistake the moment he stepped onto the frozen lake. He had been circling, harassing the beast, and in the darkness had not seen the sheet of ice stretching before him. His first step on it was fine. His second step produced a crack like a gunshot. His third step sent him plunging through. The water was so cold it burned. Alex gasped, lost his breath, went under. The current tried to pull him downstream, under the ice. He thrashed, broke surface, grabbed at the ice edge. It broke in his hands. He grabbed again, found firmer ice, hauled himself up with strength he did not know he had left. The spear was gone, pulled away by the current. Alex lay on the ice, shaking so violently he could not stand. His clothes froze solid on his body. Ice formed in his beard, on his eyelashes. His core temperature was dropping toward lethal levels. The biodrone circled overhead. On the screens in the palace, Dominessa rose from her throne. "Well," she said quietly, "that is that, then." Several nobles actually looked relieved. The entertainment had become too real, had shown them something they did not want to see. But Alex was not dead yet. He crawled off the ice, his limbs barely responding. Hypothermia was setting in. He knew the stages. Shivering meant his body was still fighting. When the shivering stopped, he had minutes. He was still shivering. Ahead, through blurring vision, he saw a shape, a mound of rotting vegetation, the local equivalent of a compost heap where fallen fern fronds and other plant matter had piled up over seasons. Decay produces heat, biology still working even in this cold. Alex reached it and began to dig. The outer layers were frozen, but beneath that, the rot was warm. Not hot, but warm. Warm enough. He dug like an animal, using hands he could no longer feel, creating a hollow in the stinking, slimy mass of decomposition. Then he crawled inside and pulled the material over himself, burying himself alive in rot. He bit down on a hollow plant stem, keeping it angled up to the surface, breathing through it. The position was fetal, claustrophobic. The smell was beyond description, worse than anything he had encountered. But the warmth was real, slow, gradual, but real. His shivering began to ease as his core temperature stabilized. The Ursa Titan arrived minutes later. Alex heard it snuffling, searching. The beast's massive paws disturbed the ground less than a meter from his head. He could hear its breathing, frustrated, confused. The thing could smell him, or thought it could, but the rot disguised his scent enough to create uncertainty. The biodrone circled overhead. Its sensors, tuned to heat signatures, showed only the beast and the warm heap of decay. The human had vanished. Dominessa stared at the screen. "Where is he?" she demanded. The drone operator, a thin male with blue skin, pale from never seeing sun, shook his head. "The signature is gone, Your Majesty. He must have succumbed to the cold." "Then find the body." "The drones cannot detect it. The heat may have left it already, or he is not dead." Dominessa's voice was sharp. "Keep watching." But the hours passed, and there was nothing to see. The Ursa Titan finally gave up searching and collapsed onto the very heap where Alex lay buried. The beast's warm bulk actually helped, adding more heat to Alex's rotting cocoon. The creature's breathing slowed further, entered a torpor state somewhere between sleep and hibernation. Buried alive in filth, barely able to breathe through his plant stem snorkel, Alex began to hallucinate. He saw Earth, blue skies and green trees and water that ran clear. He saw his home, his family, faces he had not seen in 3 years, not since the transport ship had been captured between stars. His daughter, 8 years old when he had last held her. His wife, her smile that had sustained him through 1,000 dark moments. Were they alive? Did they think he was dead? Had they moved on? The rot pressed against him from all sides. Worms or their local equivalent moved through it, occasionally brushing his skin. He wanted to scream. He wanted to claw his way out and run until his heart burst and the cold took him. But something deeper than thought kept him still. The animal part of the brain that had kept his ancestors alive through ice ages and predators and starvation. The part that whispered, "Survive now. Feel later." His eyes stayed open in the absolute darkness beneath the rot. He breathed through the stem. He listened to the Ursa Titan's heartbeat slowing, becoming a distant drum. Hours crawled by like dying things. Then gradually the darkness began to lessen. The twin suns rose in sequence, and with them came heat. Rapid heat, as if the world was apologizing for the night. Snow began to melt almost immediately. Water trickled through the pile of rot. The Ursa Titan stirred, groaning. Its metabolism was climbing back to activity levels, but sluggishly. The cold night had drained it more than the beast could know. Beneath it, in the rot, Alex counted his breaths. 30 seconds. 1 minute. 2 minutes. The beast was moving above him, shifting, trying to stand. 3 minutes. Alex exploded from the heap. He burst upward through rot and slime, covered head to toe in blue-black filth that steamed in the cold air. He looked like death itself rising from a grave. His eyes, the only clean things about him, blazed with something beyond rage or fear. Pure life force. Pure will. He screamed. Not words, just sound. The howl of something that refused to die. The Ursa Titan, still sluggish from sleep, jumped back. For the first time in its life, the apex predator felt something it had never experienced before. Uncertainty. This thing, this prey creature, should be dead. Should have frozen or drowned or given up. But here it was, screaming like a demon, covered in decay, more terrible in that moment than any predator. The beast backed up another step. Alex did not let it think. He grabbed a rock, heavy and rough, and hurled it. The stone struck the beast's snout with a crack. Alex grabbed another rock, threw it, grabbed a stick, charged forward, waving it like a club, screaming continuously. The Ursa Titan turned and ran. It was not a tactical retreat. It was not calculated. It was pure instinct, the same instinct that makes any animal flee from something it does not understand. The beast crashed through the fern forest, and Alex followed, still screaming, still throwing whatever he could reach. In the palace gallery, nobles stood at the crystal barrier, mouths open. On the screens, they watched a human, small and filth-covered and objectively weak, chasing a 3-ton apex predator through the wilderness. "This is not possible," someone breathed. Dominessa said nothing. Her knuckles were white where she gripped the railing. The twin suns climbed higher. The temperature rose from lethal cold to merely freezing to actually comfortable. And as it rose, the Ursa Titan's biological disadvantage became acute. The beast needed to drink. Every time it approached water, Alex appeared, throwing stones, screaming, driving it away. The beast needed to rest in shade. Every time it tried to lie down, Alex was there with noise and rocks and that terrible, endless energy. Hour after hour, Alex pursued. He did not let the beast stop, not for a moment. His own body was past exhaustion, running on something beyond adrenaline, some core of human stubbornness that had let his species walk out of Africa and cover the planet, that had made them the most persistent predators in Earth's history. The Ursa Titan began to overheat. Its metabolism, spiked by the rising temperature and the constant movement, could not shed heat fast enough. Without sweat glands, it relied on panting, But panting while running was not enough. Its muscle tissue began to cook from the inside. Lactic acid built up faster than its system could process. Its movements became clumsy. Alex saw it happening. He did not relent. He could not afford to. If the beast got a second win, got a moment to recover, it would kill him. So he drove it harder. The Ursa Titan stumbled, caught itself, stumbled again. Its tongue lolled from its mouth, thick and swollen. Foam gathered at the corners of its jaws, pink with blood from a bitten tongue. It tried one last charge, drew on reserves it did not have, turned on its tormentor with everything left in its body. It lunged, jaws wide enough to swallow Alex's head, claws extended. Alex threw himself flat. The beast sailed over him, landed badly, legs unable to compensate. It crashed into the ground and did not get up. For several seconds, there was only the sound of labored breathing. Both of them, predator and prey, exhausted beyond measure. Then Alex stood. His legs shook. His vision swam. But he stood. The Ursa Titan lay on its side, flanks heaving like bellows. It tried to raise its head, failed. Tried again, managed to lift it a few inches before it fell back. Its eyes rolled, showing white. Its breath came in horrible, rasping gas. Alex approached slowly. Each step was an act of will. He had nothing left. No weapon, no energy, barely conscious. But he approached. The beast watched him come. There was no fight left in its eyes now, only confusion. And perhaps if an animal could feel such things, a kind of respect. Alex searched the ground until he found what he needed. A piece of obsidian, volcanic glass, sharp as any blade. It had been embedded in rock near where the beast fell, and Alex pried it free with numb fingers. He knelt by the beast's massive head. This close, he could see the individual hairs of its fur, blue-black and almost metallic. Could see old scars beneath the fur, marks of a life spent fighting. This creature was not evil. It was not cruel. It was what it had been made to be. Alex placed one hand on the beast's snout. The fur was hot, feverish. The beast did not snap at him. Perhaps it could not. Perhaps it understood this was the end. "I am sorry, brother," Alex whispered. His voice was destroyed from screaming, the words barely audible. He found the point where the jaw met the skull, where the vital arteries ran close to the surface. The obsidian blade was sharp. The cut was quick. The Ursa Titan shuddered once, then went still. Blood, darker than Alex expected, pooled in the snow. The beast's eyes glazed, fixed on the sky. Alex sat back, still holding the obsidian. He felt nothing. No triumph, no relief. Just a vast emptiness and the knowledge that he had done what needed doing. After a time, he found the strength to stand. He used the obsidian to cut one of the beast's claws free. It took time. The bone was thick, and he had to saw through muscle and tendon. But he managed. The claw was as long as his forearm, heavy, still radiating heat from the beast's fever. He began to walk. The journey back to the arena took most of the day. Alex moved like a ghost through the landscape, no longer hiding, no longer running, just walking. The bio-drones followed him silently, transmitting his slow progress. In the palace, no one spoke. They watched the screens as the filth-covered human carried his trophy across the tundra. Watched as he climbed the rocky approaches to the arena. Watched as he squeezed back through the gap in the wall and stepped onto the blood-stained snow where this had all begun. The arena was silent. Word had spread. The galleries were full now, not just with nobles, but with soldiers, servants, anyone who could crowd in. They stood in absolute quiet as Alex walked across the arena floor, his footsteps the only sound. He reached the stairs leading up to the royal box. He began to climb. Each step left a mark, blood and filth on the perfect blue carpet. Guards moved to intercept him, hands on their weapons. Dominessa raised one hand. The guards froze. Alex climbed the last steps and stood before her. She was seated on her throne, elevated above him. But in that moment, the height difference meant nothing. He seemed to fill the space, seemed to tower despite being merely human-sized. He looked at her. She looked back. Blue eyes met human eyes across a gulf that was more than species. Alex lifted the claw. For a moment, he just held it, letting her see it. Proof. Evidence. The impossible made real. Then he dropped it into her goblet. The wine splashed, thick and red, spattering her gown, her hands. The claw settled at the bottom of the cup with a sound like a bell. "Merry Christmas," Alex said. His voice was ruined, shredded from screaming, and cold, but the words were clear enough. The silence stretched. Every eye in the arena was fixed on Dominessa. Her face was unreadable, a mask of blue skin and sharp features. She reached into the goblet slowly, her fingers closing around the claw. She lifted it, examined it, turned it in the light. Blood and wine dripped from its edge. When she looked at Alex again, something had changed in her expression. The mockery was gone, the casual cruelty. In its place was something Alex had not expected to see: fear, not of him personally, but of what he represented. The realization that her empire's superiority was not absolute, that soft flesh and weak bodies could house an iron will that would not break. And beneath the fear, something else: fascination, the kind of fascination a collector feels when discovering something rare and precious. "You have won," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but it took effort. "By the terms I set, the kingdom is yours." She waited, and Alex understood she was testing him, seeing if he would actually try to claim it, knowing that to do so would mean immediate death from 1,000 blades the moment he showed weakness. "Keep your kingdom," Alex said. "I want something else. Name it. A place in your army, command of soldiers, the chance to fight your enemies instead of dying for your entertainment." The courtiers stirred, whispering. This was unexpected. He should have asked for freedom, for passage home, for mercy, not this. Dominessa studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. It was not a kind smile, but it was genuine. "Done," she said. "Commander Alex, you will lead my forward scouts. You will teach them what you have taught me today, that victory is not always about strength. Sometimes it is about refusing to die." She stood, and the court stood with her. She extended one hand, not for him to kiss as was custom, but to shake as equals might. Alex looked at her hand, blue-skinned and elegant, then grasped it with his own, still filthy from the rot heap. "Do not disappoint me," she said quietly. "Do not underestimate me again," Alex replied. She laughed, sharp and sudden. "No, I do not think I will." Alex turned and walked back down the stairs. The crowd parted before him, nobles and soldiers alike stepping back to let him pass. Not from revulsion at his appearance, though he was objectively disgusting, from something else. Recognition that they had witnessed something they did not fully understand, but that commanded respect nonetheless. He reached the arena floor and kept walking, out through the main gates that stood open now, into the corridors of the palace beyond. Someone would find him quarters. Someone would bring food, water, clothes, eventually. For now he just walked, putting distance between himself and the arena, between himself and the beast corpse still cooling in the mountains beyond. Behind him in the royal box, Dominessa stood at the railing, the bloody claw still in her hand. She looked out at the arena, at the tracks Alex had left, at the evidence of the impossible thing she had just witnessed. "Your Majesty," her chief advisor ventured, approaching carefully. "Was that wise? Giving him command?" "Wise?" Dominessa turned the claw in her hand, watching light play along its edge. "Perhaps not, but necessary. We face enemies who outnumber us, who have weapons we cannot match. I need commanders who know how to win when winning should be impossible. I need humans." "Humans," the advisor repeated, tasting the word as if it were foreign. "They are so small, so weak." "So we thought," Dominessa said softly. "So we very much thought." She set the claw on the arm of her throne, where it rested like a trophy, like a reminder, like a promise of things to come. In the streets beyond the palace, Alex kept walking. His body screamed for rest, for food, for basic human comfort. But his mind was clear for the first time in months. He had survived, more than survived. He had won a measure of respect in a place that gave respect to nothing weak. It was not freedom, it was not home, but it was something, a foundation to build on, a place to start. And for a human, stranded far from Earth on a world that wanted nothing more than to crush him, that was enough, more than enough. The twin suns climbed toward their zenith. Somewhere in the mountains, scavengers were already finding the Ursa Titan's corpse, beginning the work of returning its body to the elements. The arena staff began cleaning the galleries, washing away wine stains and blood. Alex found his way to a barracks courtyard where soldiers were training. They stopped when they saw him, this creature from another world covered in filth and radiating exhaustion. An officer approached, hand on weapon. "Commander Alex," the officer said uncertainly, having received orders somehow before Alex even arrived. "Your quarters are prepared, if you will follow me." Alex nodded. He followed. His war on this world was not over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But he had learned something important today, something he had known intellectually but now understood in his bones. Survival was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about being the most stubborn, about refusing to quit when quitting made sense, about finding a way when there was no way. Humans had walked across continents pursuing mammoths until the mammoths died, had chased prey for days until the prey's heart burst, had survived ice ages and droughts and predators that outmatched them in every physical way, had climbed to the top of their world's food chain armed with nothing but sharp rocks and the refusal to give up. Alex was that legacy made flesh, and this blue-skinned empire, for all its technology and its arrogance, had just learned that flesh could be stronger than any armor when it housed an unbreakable will. He reached his quarters, a small room carved from stone, simple but clean. There was a bed, water for washing, food on a table. He closed the door behind him and finally let himself stop. He ate mechanically, too tired to taste. He washed, watching months of accumulated grime and one day's worth of rot spiral down the drain. He looked at himself in a polished metal mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Scarred, hollow-cheeked, beard still wild despite washing, eyes that had seen too much, but alive, still alive. He fell onto the bed and into sleep like falling into deep water. He dreamed of Earth, of his family, of blue sky and green grass and water that tasted of home. He dreamed they were waiting for him, that he would find a way back somehow, that this was not the end of his story but just another chapter in it. When he woke hours later, the dreams faded, but the determination remained. He would survive. He would adapt. He would find a way. He was human. It was what humans did. Outside his window, the twin suns set in sequence, painting the sky in colors that Earth had never known. The stars emerged, cold and distant and indifferent. Somewhere in those stars, Earth turned on its axis. His family lived or mourned. His home endured without him. But he would remember them. He would carry them with him. And someday, if the universe allowed it, he would find his way back. For now, though, he had a new life to build, a command to prepare for, battles to fight that would test everything he had learned. He rose from the bed, muscles screaming in protest. He found clean clothes laid out for him, military issue in the Empire's colors. He dressed slowly, each movement deliberate. When he was done, he looked in the mirror again. Commander Alex stared back at him, scarred and weary but unbroken. Never broken. He opened the door and stepped out into his new life. The corridor stretched before him, lit by bioluminescent strips that pulsed with soft blue light. Soldiers passed, saluting him now, acknowledging his rank. He saluted back and kept walking. Down the corridor, through the palace, out into the world that had tried to kill him and failed. The battle with the beast had been one day, one impossible day, but it had changed everything. For him, for Dominessa, for the empire that now counted a human among its commanders. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new enemies, new impossibilities to overcome. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, Alex walked through the palace of his former captors as a free man, as a commander, as someone who had earned his place through blood and will, in the absolute refusal to quit. He thought of the Ursa Titan, dying in the snow with respect in its eyes. He hoped he had given it a good death, a warrior's death. The beast had deserved that much. He thought of Dominessa, fear and fascination in her expression. She had learned that humans were not to be underestimated. Others would learn the same lesson, one way or another. He thought of the courtiers, silent as he walked past them. They had seen something that shook their worldview. They had seen weakness triumph through sheer stubborn will. and he thought of home, always home. The thought that kept him moving when nothing else would. The thought that had sustained him through the longest night of his life. He would survive. He would prevail. He would find his way back. Because he was human. And humans did not give up. Ever. The palace stretched around him, vast and alien and full of danger. But Alex walked through it without fear. Fear was for those who had something left to lose. He had already lost everything except his life and his will. Those two things would be enough. They would have to be. He found his way to the command center, where maps of the Empire's territories covered the walls. Officers moved between them, updating positions, planning campaigns. They looked up as he entered, eyes assessing this strange creature that had somehow become their peer. "Commander," one said, a tall female with scars across her blue skin. "We were told you would be joining us. I am Captain Eleonora. I lead the Mountain Scouts." Alex nodded. "Tell me about your enemies." And so it began, the real work, the long campaign that would test him in ways different from but no less challenging than the battle with the beast. But he was ready, as ready as he could be. He had faced death and walked away. Everything else was just details. Hours passed in briefings and planning. He learned the names of enemy clans, the territories in dispute, the tactics that had worked and those that had failed. He absorbed it all, his mind working through problems, seeing patterns, finding advantages. When the briefings finally ended and the other officers dispersed to their duties, Eleonora lingered. "That thing you did today," she said quietly, "running from the beast. Everyone thought you were a coward." "I know," Alex said, "but you were not running away. You were controlling the battlefield, choosing your ground." "Yes." She studied him for a long moment. "We do not think that way. We face our enemies directly, matching strength to strength. It is our way." "It is a good way," Alex said, "when you are stronger. But what do you do when you are not?" Eleonora had no answer to that. She nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "You will teach us this, if you will learn." "We will learn. We must. The war goes badly. We need new thinking." She paused. "They told me about the beast, how you won. It should not have been possible." "Many impossible things are possible," Alex said, "if you are willing to pay the price." "And what price did you pay?" Alex thought of the night in the rot heap, the hallucinations, the moment he had wanted to simply give up and die, the fear and cold and pain that had nearly broken him. "Everything," he said simply. "I paid everything." Eleonora nodded as if she understood. Perhaps she did. Soldiers, regardless of species, shared certain experiences, certain knowledge of what it cost to survive when survival seemed impossible. "Tomorrow we begin training," she said. "The men will test you. Try to see if your victory was luck." "Let them," Alex said. "I have nothing left to prove." She smiled at that. "You say that now, but you do not know my soldiers. They are proud. They do not take orders from those they do not respect." "Then they will learn respect," Alex said, "or they will die on the battlefield from their own pride. Their choice." The bluntness surprised her, but she nodded. "You may be right. We shall see." She left and Alex was alone in the command center. He looked at the maps, at the vast territories in conflict, at the markers showing enemy positions. So much war, so much death ahead. But that was for tomorrow and the days after. Tonight he was simply alive, and that was victory enough. He returned to his quarters, lay down and let sleep take him. No dreams this time, just deep black rest that his body desperately needed. When morning came, the twin suns rising in sequence to paint the world in light, Alex woke to a knock on his door. A young soldier stood there, barely more than a boy, blue skin unmarked by scars. "Commander," the boy said, voice uncertain, "Captain Eleonora requests your presence in the training yard." "Tell her I am coming." The boy hurried away. Alex dressed, strapped on the weapons that had been provided, crude but serviceable, and stepped out into his new life. The training yard was full of soldiers, 50, maybe 60. They stood in loose formation, watching as Alex approached. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to hostility to simple indifference. Eleonora stood at their head. "Commander Alex, these are your scouts, Mountain troops fast and deadly. The best we have. The best you have, a voice called from the ranks, should not be led by an alien. Murmurs of agreement. Alex looked at the speaker, a large male with multiple scars and the bearing of a veteran. The soldier stared back, challenging. Your name? Alex asked. Dwight, senior scout. I have fought for the Empire for 20 years. Then you have earned the right to speak, Alex said. Say what you need to say. Dwight stepped forward. You won a battle against a beast. Impressive for a weak thing like you, but beasts are not soldiers. Beasts do not think, do not adapt. You got lucky. Perhaps, Alex agreed. That surprised them. They had expected him to defend himself, to argue. Instead, he simply stood there, waiting. Perhaps I was lucky, Alex continued, and perhaps luck will not hold in real battle. Perhaps I will fail, and good soldiers will die because of my mistakes. Perhaps you are right to question me. He let that hang in the air for a moment, then, but your Empress gave me this command, not because she thinks I am strong or fast or superior to you in any way, but because I know how to win when winning should be impossible, because I know how to turn weakness into strength, and because your empire needs that knowledge if it wants to survive the wars you're losing. He walked forward, stopping directly in front of Dwight. The soldier towered over him. Alex did not care. You do not have to like me, Alex said. You do not have to respect me as a person, but you will follow my orders because those orders come from the Empress herself. If you cannot do that, leave now. There is no shame in it. But if you stay all the way. Dwight stared down at him. The moment stretched. Then slowly, the soldier stepped back and saluted. I will stay, Commander, Dwight said, and I will follow your orders. But if you get my men killed through incompetence, I will kill you myself. Fair enough, Alex said. He turned to address the whole group. We begin with endurance training. We will run 10 kilometers to start. Those who fall behind do extra drills. Move out. Groans and complaints, but they moved. They were soldiers. They knew how to follow orders, even when they disagreed with them. Alex ran with them, keeping pace despite his smaller size and different biology. His body still ached from the day before, but he pushed through it. Pain was temporary. Respect had to be earned. They ran through the palace grounds out into the surrounding hills. The soldiers expected Alex to fall behind, to struggle. They were wrong. He maintained position in the middle of the pack, breathing controlled, pace steady. After 5 kilometers, some of the younger soldiers began to flag. Alex did not slow. After 7 kilometers, even some veterans were laboring. Alex maintained pace. His leg muscles burned, his lungs ached, but he had run longer under worse conditions just yesterday. This was nothing compared to that endless pursuit through the tundra. At 10 kilometers, he called the halt. Some soldiers collapsed immediately, others bent over, gasping. Alex stood upright, breathing hard but controlled. Again, he said. Tomorrow, same distance. Every day until you can complete it without exhausting yourselves. When you can do this easily, we increase to 15 kilometers, then 20. What is the point of this? Someone asked. We train for combat, not running. Running is combat, Alex said. The ability to move faster and farther than your enemy, to arrive at battle still capable of fighting while he is exhausted, that is victory before the first blade is drawn. You are mountain scouts. You should already know this. They looked at each other, processing this. It made sense, but it was not how they were used to thinking. They thought of combat as two forces meeting, strength against strength. Alex thought of combat as a process that began long before swords crossed. The training continued. Running became routine. Then Alex added weight to their packs. Then he made them run in full armor. Then he taught them how to move quietly despite the weight, how to cover ground efficiently, how to read terrain for advantages. Weeks passed. The soldiers began to change. They moved differently, thought differently. They began to see combat the way Alex saw it, as a problem to be solved rather than a test of pure strength. Dwight, the veteran who had challenged him, became one of his most reliable officers. The big soldier's experience combined with Alex's tactical thinking created a formidable combination. Eleonora watched the transformation with approval. She reported to Dominessa regularly, and the Empress listened with interest. The human commander was producing results. His scouts were becoming something new, something dangerous. Finally, after 2 months of training, orders came. A border fort was under siege by enemy forces. Reinforcements were needed. Alex's scouts would be deployed. The night before they left, Alex stood alone on a balcony overlooking the palace grounds. The twin suns had set, stars emerging in their wake. He thought of home, as he often did. Wondered if his family looked at stars and thought of him. Wondered if they were still alive. Eleonora found him there. "Nervous?" she asked. "Always," Alex admitted. "Only fools feel no fear before battle." "Then you are no fool." She stood beside him, looking out at the same stars. "The men respect you now. They will follow you." "Respect is earned every day," Alex said. "One mistake and I lose it." "Then do not make mistakes." He smiled at that. "I will do my best." "The enemy we face," Eleonora continued, "they are strong, numerous. They have been winning. This siege has lasted 3 months. The fort still holds, but barely. Then we will break the siege." "How? We are 50 soldiers. The enemy has hundreds." "We use what we learned," Alex said. "We do not fight them where they are strong. We make them fight us where we are strong. We exhaust them, demoralize them, break their will to continue. And when they are weakest, then we strike." Eleonora nodded slowly. "It is not how we would do it, but our way has not been working. Then it is time to try something new." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Eleonora spoke again. "Do you miss your home?" "Every day." "Do you think you will return?" Alex did not answer immediately. He thought about it, really thought about it. The chances were vanishingly small. This empire spanned systems, but Earth was beyond their reach, or so they claimed. He was stranded here, likely forever. "I do not know," he said finally, "but I will survive. And if I survive long enough, perhaps I will find a way. Or perhaps I will build a new life here. Either way, I keep moving forward." "That is very human," Eleonora said. "Never giving up. It is admirable and exhausting to watch." Alex laughed. "Get some rest, Captain. We leave at dawn." "You as well, Commander." She left. Alex remained on the balcony for a while longer, then retreated to his quarters. He checked his equipment methodically, everything in its place. Axe, knives, bow and arrows, basic field kit. Primitive weapons, but effective in the right hands. He slept and dreamed of battle. When dawn came, he was ready. The scouts assembled in the courtyard. 50 soldiers, hardened by training, equipped and eager. They looked at Alex with something like trust now. He had earned it, day by day, kilometer by kilometer. "Move out," Alex ordered. They moved like shadows through the mountains, fast and silent. 3 days of hard travel brought them to the ridge overlooking the besieged fort. Alex studied the enemy positions through a primitive but functional scope. Hundreds of soldiers, as Eleonora had said. They had constructed siege works, trenches and barriers surrounding the fort. Catapults lobbed stones intermittently, keeping the defenders pinned. Supply trains came and went, keeping the besiegers fed. The fort itself was small, but well built, stone walls and good defensive positions. Smoke rose from inside, signs of life. The defenders still held, still fought, but they were running out of time. Alex lowered the scope. His mind raced through possibilities, discarding strategies that would not work, focusing on those that might. 50 soldiers could not defeat hundreds in open combat, but they did not need to. "Dwight," Alex called. The big soldier approached. "Take 10 men, quiet ones. Tonight you will slip past the siege lines and enter the fort. Coordinate with the defenders. I need to know their exact situation, what resources they have left. And you? The rest of us are going to make the besiegers very uncomfortable." That night, Dwight's team made their infiltration. They moved like ghosts, using techniques Alex had drilled into them. The enemy sentries never saw them pass. By dawn, they were inside the fort, speaking with the exhausted defenders. Meanwhile, Alex took the remaining 40 scouts and began what would become a nightmare for the besieging force. They struck the supply trains first. 3 men, 2 mules carrying food and weapons. Alex's scouts hit them hard and fast, killing the guards before they could raise an alarm, taking the supplies, melting back into the mountains. The next night, they struck a different supply train. then an outlying sentry post, then another supply train. The besiegers began to worry. They increased patrols, but the scouts avoided them easily. Alex chose his targets carefully, never hitting the same type twice in a row, never establishing a pattern. Sometimes they struck at dawn, sometimes noon, sometimes midnight. The enemy could not predict them. Days passed. The besiegers were bleeding supplies and men. Morale dropped. They were supposed to be the attackers, but they felt like prey. The fort defenders, meanwhile, received fresh supplies from Dwight's team, who now moved freely between fort and mountains, running a supply line the besiegers could not cut. 2 weeks into the campaign, the enemy commander made a mistake. He sent a large force into the mountains to hunt the scouts. 200 soldiers, well-armed and angry. Alex led them on a chase through the most difficult terrain he could find. Narrow passes where their numbers were meaningless, steep climbs that exhausted them, false trails that wasted their time. His scouts moved ahead of them always, leaving just enough sign to be followed, but never enough to be caught. 3 days of pursuit. The enemy soldiers were exhausted, supplies running low, morale shattered. They were a day's march from their siege lines, deep in hostile territory. That night, Alex struck with his full force. 40 scouts hit the exhausted, sleeping enemy camp like a winter storm. Arrows from the darkness, then close combat with axe and blade. The enemy, caught unprepared and too tired to mount proper defense, broke. Those who survived fled back toward their siege lines. Alex did not pursue. He had achieved his goal. The enemy had spent 200 soldiers and gained nothing. When the remnants of the pursuit force staggered back to the siege lines with tales of demons in the mountains, the enemy commander faced a choice: continue the siege against a fort that was now resupplied, with his own supplies dwindling and morale collapsing, or retreat. He chose retreat. The siege broke. The enemy pulled back, and the fort was saved. Alex's scouts entered the fort as heroes. The defenders, who had held for 3 months against impossible odds, cheered them. Dwight emerged from the fort grinning, embracing Alex in a crushing hug that nearly broke ribs. "Impossible," Dwight said. "We did the impossible." "We did what needed doing," Alex corrected, but he was smiling too. The victory was reported back to the capital. Dominessa received the news with satisfaction. Her gamble on the human commander had paid off. She sent orders. Alex's scouts were now a permanent unit. They would train more soldiers in these new tactics. The Empire would adapt or die, and she chose adaptation. Alex sat in the fort's command room that night, exhausted but alive. Eleonora found him there, as she often did. "You did well, Commander," she said. "We did well," he corrected. "I gave orders. You and the others executed them. This victory belongs to everyone." "Still, you saw what others did not, the way to win without fighting the enemy's battle." Alex thought about that. "On my world," he said, "there was an old saying: if you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics suck. Never fight fair. Always find the advantage and exploit it ruthlessly." Eleonora laughed. "I think I like your world's philosophy." "It kept us alive for a long time," Alex said, "against predators that were faster and stronger than us. We survived because we thought our way around problems we could not fight through. And now you bring that to us? If you will have it." "We will," Eleonora said firmly. "We must. The war is larger than this one siege. We face enemies on multiple fronts. We need every advantage." Alex nodded. He knew this was just the beginning. One battle won, countless more ahead. But for tonight, they had earned a moment of peace. He thought of the Ursa Titan, the beast that had started all of this. In a strange way, he was grateful to it. That impossible battle had forced him to prove himself, had earned him the respect needed to get this far. The beast had died, but its death had given Alex life in a new form. "To fallen warriors," Alex said, raising a cup of water. "To fallen warriors," Eleonora echoed. They drank, and the night passed, and the war continued. But Alex had found his place in it. Not as the strongest fighter or the fastest scout, but as something else, a thinker, a strategist, someone who saw paths others missed. He would continue to walk those paths, would continue to find ways to survive and win, would continue to be what he was, stubbornly, impossibly, determinedly human. And in a universe that tried constantly to crush him, that was enough. That would always be enough. The months that followed the siege victory transformed Alex from a curiosity into a genuine military asset. Dominessa pulled him from the field to train more units in his tactics, and the palace became his new arena. He spent days drilling soldiers in endurance running, in thinking like prey to hunt like predators, in turning every disadvantage into potential advantage. The blue-skinned warriors resisted at first, their pride wounded by lessons from a smaller, weaker creature. But results spoke louder than pride. Units trained by Alex suffered fewer casualties, won engagements they should have lost, survived when survival seemed impossible. Not everyone was pleased. In the officer corps, resentment grew like poison in a wound. Commander Hugo, a decorated veteran with 40 years of service, led the opposition. He was massive even by the standards of his people, his blue skin crisscrossed with scars that told stories of 100 battles. He had earned his rank through strength and courage, and he saw Alex's methods as cowardice dressed as strategy. The confrontation came during a staff meeting 6 months after the siege. The war room was crowded with officers, all studying maps of the frontier where 3 separate conflicts raged. Alex stood at one of the map tables explaining a flanking strategy that would avoid direct confrontation with a superior enemy force. Hugo slammed his fist on the table, making markers jump. "Enough of this skulking!" His voice boomed through the chamber. "We are warriors, not thieves in the night. This human teaches our soldiers to run, to hide, to strike from shadows. Where is the honor in that?" The room fell silent. Officers looked between Hugo and Alex, waiting to see how the human would respond. Alex did not raise his voice. He simply looked at Hugo with those steady eyes that had stared down death in the tundra. "Honor does not feed widows," Alex said. "Honor does not raise orphans. Dead soldiers earn no glory, regardless of how bravely they fell. I teach survival. If that offends your sense of honor, that is your concern, not mine." Hugo's face darkened. "You call me a fool? I call you a soldier who has been lucky enough to survive 40 years of honorable combat. Many good soldiers have not been so lucky. I am trying to improve their odds. By making them cowards." Alex shook his head. "A coward runs from battle. I teach soldiers to run toward battle, but on their terms rather than the enemy's terms. There is a difference." Hugo stepped forward, towering over Alex. The threat was implicit. Other officers moved subtly, hands near weapons, unsure if they should intervene. Eleonora, standing near the door, tensed. "You think because the Empress favors you, you are untouchable," Hugo said quietly, dangerously. "You are wrong, human. We tolerate you, but barely. Push too far and you will learn what happens to those who disrespect our traditions." Alex met his gaze without flinching. "Your traditions are getting soldiers killed needlessly. If that is worth preserving, then I have nothing more to say to you." For a moment, violence hung in the air like storm clouds. Then Dominessa's voice cut through the tension. She had been standing in the shadows observing, and now she stepped forward. "Commander Hugo," she said, her tone ice cold, "you question my judgment?" Hugo immediately stepped back and saluted. "No, Your Majesty. I question his methods. His methods have saved 3 frontier forts and reduced casualties and trained units by 40%. What have your methods accomplished lately?" The insult landed hard. Hugo's jaw clenched, but he could not respond without insubordination. Dominessa continued, her voice carrying authority that brooked no argument. "You will work with Commander Alex, or you will resign your commission. Those are your options. Choose now." Hugo looked at Alex one more time, hatred burning in his eyes. Then he saluted Dominessa. "I will serve, Your Majesty." "Good. Then stop wasting my time with complaints and start winning battles." She turned to the room at large. "All of you, we are losing this war. Every front is in crisis. I do not care about honor or tradition or pride. I care about victory. If this human can give us victory, you will follow his lead. If you cannot do that, the door is open. Leave and make room for soldiers who understand what is at stake." No one left. They were warriors, but they were not stupid. Dominessa's word was law, and her patience was clearly exhausted. The meeting continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Hugo remained, but his influence was diminished. Alex continued explaining his strategies, and officers listened with more attention, asking questions, beginning to understand the logic behind methods that had seemed cowardly. After the meeting, Eleonora found Alex in the training yard, where he often went to clear his mind. He was practicing with his bow, sending arrows into targets at increasing distances. His accuracy was not remarkable by the standards of this world's warriors, but his consistency was noteworthy. "You made an enemy today," she said. "I had that enemy already," Alex replied, knocking another arrow. "Today he simply said it out loud." "Hugo is dangerous. He has followers, soldiers loyal to him personally." "I know." Alex released the arrow. It struck near the center of a distant target. "But what would you have me do? Pretend his methods work when they do not? More soldiers would die." "No, you are right, but be careful. Hugo is not above arranging accidents." Alex lowered the bow and looked at her. "Is that a warning based on evidence or speculation?" "Speculation, but informed speculation. Hugo has ambitions. He wants the position of High Commander. Your success threatens that. If you were to die in some unfortunate training accident or combat situation, it would remove an obstacle. Then I will be careful." Alex resumed shooting. "But I will not stop doing what needs doing." Eleonora watched him for a moment longer, then left. Alex continued his practice until darkness fell, then returned to his quarters. He was not naive. He knew Hugo represented a genuine threat. But fear of assassination was just another variable to manage, like terrain or weather or enemy tactics. He would adapt and survive, as he always had. The next deployment came 3 weeks later. A mining colony in the mountains had been overrun by raiders from a rival faction. The colony provided rare minerals essential for the Empire's weapons production. Retaking it was critical. Dominessa assigned the mission to Alex with a mixed force of 100 soldiers, 50 of his trained scouts and 50 traditional troops under Hugo's command. The arrangement was transparently political. Dominessa wanted to force cooperation, to show that both methods had value. Or perhaps she wanted to see which commander would prove more effective. Either way, Alex accepted the assignment without complaint. The combined force assembled in the courtyard at dawn. Alex's scouts looked ready, equipped light and mobile. Hugo's troops looked equally ready but heavily armored, carrying more weight. The contrast was stark. Hugo approached Alex, his expression neutral. "We march together, but make no mistake, human. My soldiers take orders from me, not you." "Understood," Alex said. "I command my scouts. You command your troops. We coordinate objectives but maintain separate chains of command." "Acceptable." Hugo turned to his troops and barked orders. They formed up in traditional column formation, disciplined and impressive. Alex's scouts formed up more loosely, in a dispersed pattern that allowed for rapid maneuver. The two forces could not have looked more different. They marched for 5 days, covering ground quickly despite the difficult mountain terrain. Hugo's troops struggled with the pace, their heavy armor and rigid formation slowing them. Alex's scouts adapted to the terrain, moving faster. By the 3rd day, there was significant distance between the two groups. Hugo insisted they wait for his troops to catch up each evening, and Alex agreed. He used the waiting time to scout ahead, mapping enemy positions, identifying weaknesses. The raiders had fortified the mining colony well, using the existing structures and adding barricades. They had perhaps 200 fighters, well armed and alert. On the 5th night, as they camped a few kilometers from the target, Alex and Hugo met to discuss tactics. The meeting was tense from the start. "We attack at dawn," Hugo said. "My troops will form the main assault. We hit the front gate with overwhelming force. Break through, clear the structures one by one." Alex studied the crude map he had drawn. "That will cost you half your troops. The gate is the strongest point. They will have it heavily defended. Some sacrifice is necessary in war. My soldiers understand this. Unnecessary sacrifice is wasteful. Let my scouts infiltrate during the night. We can open the gates from inside, create chaos, make your assault far easier." Hugo's expression darkened. "You want my troops to wait while yours take the glory? I think not. I want fewer soldiers to die. Glory is not the objective. Taking the colony is the objective. Your way is slow, cautious. We take the objective, but we lose momentum. While we skulk in shadows, the enemy prepares. No, we attack directly, We attack now. We overwhelm them before they can react fully. Alex realized Hugo was not interested in the most effective plan. He was interested in proving his methods superior. This was about ego, not tactics. But arguing further would accomplish nothing. Very well, Alex said. Your troops assault the gate. My scouts will hit their supplies and communications, prevent reinforcements, cause confusion. We support your attack from a different angle. Hugo considered this. It allowed him the primary role while keeping Alex's scouts occupied elsewhere. Acceptable. We attack at first light. They separated. Alex gathered his scouts and explained the real plan. Not the one he had discussed with Hugo, but the one that might actually work. Hugo will assault the gate at dawn, Alex said quietly. It will be bloody and difficult. But while he occupies their attention there, we will infiltrate from the rear, through the mine shafts themselves. Most of the raiders will be focused on the front. We hit them from behind, sow chaos, and open the gates from inside. Hugo gets his frontal assault. We minimize casualties on both sides. Dwight grinned. You did not tell Hugo this plan. Hugo would not have approved. He wants his assault to be the decisive action. Let him have that belief. What matters is the objective, not who gets credit. The scouts understood. They had learned to trust Alex's judgment, even when it seemed to contradict direct orders. In war, flexibility often mattered more than rigid adherence to plans. The night was cold and moonless. The twin suns both set. Darkness absolute. Alex led his scouts away from the main camp, circling wide around the mining colony. They moved silently, using techniques perfected over months of training. By midnight, they had reached the rear of the colony, where old mine shafts led into the mountain. The entrances were supposed to be guarded, but Alex had observed during his scouting that the raiders were lazy about rear security. They assumed the difficult terrain and remote location protected them. They were wrong. 5 guards, half asleep, huddled around a small fire near the shaft entrance. Alex's scouts killed them silently, arrows and blades in the darkness. The bodies were dragged away from the entrance. The scouts entered the mine. The tunnels were narrow and dark, lit only by occasional bioluminescent fungi growing from cracks in the rock. Alex led the way, moving by feel as much as sight. The air was stale and cold, smelling of damp stone and old earth. Water dripped somewhere distant, echoing strangely. They moved deeper, following the main shaft. Side tunnels branched off regularly, but Alex kept to the largest passage. It would lead to the main mining complex, where the raiders had established their headquarters. After 30 minutes of careful movement, they heard voices ahead. Light appeared, torches mounted on the walls. Alex signaled a halt. He crept forward alone, peering around a corner into a larger chamber. 20 raiders occupied the chamber, a guard post for the interior of the mine complex. They were alert, armed, blocking the way forward. Alex retreated back to his scouts and considered options. A direct assault would work, but would be noisy. Noise would alert the entire colony, ruin the surprise. They needed silence. But how to kill 20 armed soldiers silently? Alex looked at the tunnel ceiling. Old support beams held up the rock, some of them looking questionable. An idea formed. Dwight, Alex whispered, take 10 men, go back to the last junction. Make noise. Make them think we are retreating. Draw them into the tunnels. And then, when they chase you into the narrower passage, we collapse it on them. Dwight's eyes gleamed with understanding. Risky. If the collapse goes wrong, we might block our own path. I know, but it is the quietest option. Go. Dwight led his team back while Alex positioned the remaining scouts near key support beams in the narrow tunnel. They rigged ropes around the beams. Simple but effective. When pulled hard, the supports would give way, bringing down tons of rock. From deeper in the mine, they heard shouting. Dwight's team making noise, sounding like they were arguing, clumsy, alerting the guards. Then running footsteps, coming back toward the entrance. The raiders took the bait. They rushed into the tunnel, weapons drawn, expecting to catch fleeing scouts. 20 soldiers crammed into the narrow space, focused forward on their prey. Alex waited until they were in position, then gave the signal. His scouts pulled the ropes. The support beams groaned, splintered, gave way. The ceiling collapsed in a roar of falling stone and dust. Screams cut off abruptly as tons of rock buried the raiders. The dust settled slowly. The tunnel was blocked now, but forward was clear. Alex's scouts regrouped, Dwight's team rejoining from a side passage they had ducked into. They had lost their rear exit, but they had not needed it anyway. Forward was the only direction that mattered. They moved on, entering the main complex. The mining colony was larger inside than it appeared from outside, a warren of storage chambers, barracks, and processing facilities carved into the mountain itself. Most of the raiders were sleeping, their guard rotation minimal because they felt secure. Alex's scouts moved through the complex like ghosts, killing sentries, avoiding groups too large to take silently. They reached the main gate from inside, just as the first light of dawn touched the sky outside. Hugo's assault began with a roar. Horns blew, and his troops charged the front gate in traditional formation, shields locked, weapons ready. The raiders responded immediately, rushing to the walls, preparing to repel the attack. While the defenders focused on Hugo's assault, Alex's scouts opened the gates from inside. Hugo's troops poured through, expecting fierce resistance. Instead, they found confusion. Raiders turning to face threats from two directions, coordination breaking down, officers shouting conflicting orders. What should have been a desperate fight became a rout. The battle lasted less than an hour. The raiders broke and fled into the mountains, leaving the colony in Imperial hands. Hugo's troops secured the perimeter, while Alex's scouts ensured no stragglers remained hidden. The victory was complete. The colony was retaken with minimal casualties. 12 of Hugo's soldiers wounded, none killed. Alex's scouts had 2 minor injuries. Hugo stood in the center of the colony, his armor splattered with blood, his sword still drawn. He looked at Alex approaching, and his expression was unreadable. "You opened the gates," Hugo said. "Yes. You were supposed to hit their supplies and communications." "I did what would save the most lives while achieving the objective," Alex replied calmly. For a long moment, Hugo said nothing. Then slowly he sheathed his sword. "You cost me the glory of a true assault. I saved your soldiers from unnecessary death. If you prefer glory to lives, that is your choice. But I will not apologize for keeping soldiers alive." Hugo's jaw clenched. Other officers were watching, waiting to see what would happen. Finally, Hugo spoke loud enough for all to hear. "The objective is secured. The mission is successful. Both forces performed well." It was not praise, but it was acknowledgement. Hugo turned and walked away, barking orders to his troops. The tension eased. Eleonora appeared at Alex's side. "You continue to make him look bad. He will not forget this. Let him remember. If it makes him think more carefully about wasting soldiers, then good." The return journey to the capital took 6 days. Hugo maintained distance from Alex's scouts, his troops marching in rigid formation, while Alex's forces moved more freely. There was no cooperation, no shared campfires, no camaraderie. Just 2 forces traveling in the same direction with very different philosophies. On the 4th night, Alex woke to find Dwight on watch, looking tense. "Problem?" Alex asked quietly. Maybe nothing. But some of Hugo's soldiers have been watching our camp. Not openly, but I have seen them. Observing." "How many?" 3, maybe 4. They watch in shifts." Alex considered this. "They are looking for weakness, something to exploit or report. Let them watch. We have nothing to hide." But he doubled the watches that night anyway. Trust was earned, and Hugo had earned none. They reached the capital without incident. Dominessa received the news of the colony's retaking with satisfaction. She summoned both Alex and Hugo to report personally. The throne room was crowded with courtiers and officials. Dominessa sat elevated on her throne, regal and imposing. Hugo reported first, describing the assault, the breach of the gate, the securing of the objective. He was factual but managed to emphasize his troops' courage and effectiveness while minimizing Alex's contribution. Then Alex gave his report. He was brief and direct, describing the infiltration and the opening of the gates. He did not embellish or take credit beyond what was due. He simply stated facts. Dominessa listened to both, her expression unreadable. When they finished, she spoke. "Commander Hugo, your assault was executed well. Your troops performed with discipline and courage, as expected." Hugo bowed, satisfaction evident. Commander Alex, your infiltration turned what would have been a costly battle into a manageable engagement. Well done. Alex nodded acknowledgement. Dominessa leaned forward slightly. However, I am troubled by something. Two commanders, one objective, but two completely separate operations with minimal coordination. This is inefficient. In future operations, you will integrate your approaches rather than working in parallel. Both commanders looked uncomfortable at this directive. Your Majesty, Hugo began, our methods are fundamentally different. Integration would compromise both approaches. Then you will learn to compromise effectively, Dominessa said sharply. The enemy does not care about your philosophical differences. They care about winning. You will find a way to work together, or I will find commanders who can. Am I clear? Yes, Your Majesty, they replied in unison. Good. Dismissed. Outside the throne room, Hugo grabbed Alex's arm, stopping him. His grip was painful, clearly intentional. You heard the Empress, Hugo said quietly. We must work together. So let me be clear, human. I will cooperate as ordered, but I will never accept your methods as equal to mine. You teach cowardice. You corrupt good soldiers. And eventually Dominessa will see this. When she does, you will have no protection. Alex pulled his arm free. I teach survival. If that threatens you, ask yourself why. Hugo's eyes narrowed. Threats? Observations. You have been a soldier for 40 years. That is admirable. But the war is changing. Methods that worked before are not working now. Adapt or become irrelevant? That is not a threat. That is reality. He walked away before Hugo could respond, but he felt the hatred burning into his back like physical heat. The months that followed brought more deployments, more battles, more opportunities for friction between Hugo and Alex. Dominessa's order for cooperation was followed technically, but not in spirit. They coordinated timing and objectives, but little else. Their forces remained separate, their methods distinct, but results continued to favor Alex's approach. Battles won with minimal casualties, objectives achieved through maneuver rather than direct assault, enemies defeated through exhaustion rather than overwhelming force. The evidence mounted, and with it, Hugo's resentment deepened. The breaking point came during the winter campaign in the Northern Territories. A rebel army had seized a series of fortified positions along a critical supply route. The route had to be cleared before winter snows closed the passes. Failure meant supply shortages that could cripple the Empire's northern armies. Dominessa assigned both Hugo and Alex to the campaign, along with a third commander, a younger officer named Glenn, who had trained under both systems. Glenn commanded the reserve force, 200 soldiers who would exploit whatever openings the initial assaults created. The rebel positions were strong. 5 fortified camps spread along a 50-kilometer stretch of road, each supporting the others. Taking them would require sequential assaults, clearing one camp before moving to the next. Difficult and time-consuming, but necessary. Hugo proposed the strategy in the command tent the night before operations began. We hit each camp in sequence. Full frontal assault, overwhelm them with numbers and courage. Glenn's reserves follow. Consolidate our gains. We can clear all 5 camps in 3 days. Alex studied the maps, tracing supply lines, defensive positions, terrain features. 3 days is not enough time. These camps are well positioned to support each other. Even if we take them, the casualties will be severe. We need a different approach. What approach? Hugo demanded. Skulking in shadows for weeks while they strengthen their positions? No, we make them abandon the positions voluntarily. The tent fell silent. Glenn looked interested. Hugo looked skeptical, bordering on hostile. Explain, Dominessa's representative, a senior aide named Francis, said. She had been sent to observe and report back to the Empress. Alex pointed to the map. The rebels hold these positions because they need the supply route, but they also need their own supplies. Everything they have comes from a depot here, 30 kilometers behind their lines. If we take the depot, they have to either retake it or abandon their forward positions. Either way, we control the strategic initiative. Take their depot? Hugo scoffed. It is behind their lines, defended, and we would have to march 30 kilometers through hostile territory to reach it. Not march, infiltrate. 100 scouts, light and fast, moving at night. We bypass their forward positions entirely, hit the depot before they realize we are there, destroy their supplies. Then we retreat and let them come to us on ground of our choosing. Glenn nodded slowly. It could work. Without supplies, they cannot hold their positions. Hugo shook his head firmly. It is too risky. 100 soldiers deep behind enemy lines with no support. If they are discovered, they will be destroyed. If we do it right, they will not be discovered until too late, Alex countered. Francis held up a hand, stopping the argument. The decision is mine to make as the Empress's representative. Commander Hugo, you will proceed with your assault as planned on the first two camps. Commander Alex, you will attempt your infiltration with your scouts. If the infiltration succeeds, excellent. If not, we still have Hugo's assault as the primary strategy. We execute both approaches simultaneously. Neither commander looked happy, but they accepted the directive. The meeting broke up, officers returning to their units to prepare. That night, Alex selected his best scouts for the infiltration. 50 soldiers, all veterans of previous campaigns, all capable of the kind of silent movement this mission required. Dwight would lead one team, Eleonora another. Alex would lead the third. They moved out at midnight, leaving the main camp quietly while Hugo's forces slept. The route took them wide around the rebel positions, through forested hills and across frozen streams. It was brutally cold, temperature well below freezing, and they moved in absolute silence. 2 nights of hard marching brought them to within sight of the rebel depot. It was larger than Alex had expected, a converted farming compound with multiple warehouses and barracks. At least 100 guards, maybe more. Taking it would not be easy. Alex observed for 12 hours, mapping patrol patterns, identifying weaknesses. The depot had a critical flaw. It was designed to defend against attack from the direction of the Imperial forces, not from behind. The rear approaches were lightly guarded. They struck just before dawn, when alertness was lowest. Silent kills, arrows from darkness, knives in the shadows. They cleared the outer perimeter in minutes. Then they went for the warehouses. The supplies were everything: food, weapons, ammunition, winter clothing. Everything the rebel army needed to maintain their positions. Alex's scouts set fires, piled combustibles, created an inferno. The fires spread quickly, warehouse to warehouse, consuming months of accumulated supplies. The alarm went up too late. Rebels rushed from barracks to find their depot already engulfed. Alex's scouts were already withdrawing, melting back into the pre-dawn darkness. A few rebels gave chase, but chasing shadows in unfamiliar terrain was futile. By midday, Alex's force was 10 kilometers away, putting distance between themselves and the burning depot. Behind them, smoke rose into the sky, visible for many kilometers. The rebels would see it. The Empire's forces would see it. Everyone would know the depot had fallen. The return journey took 2 more days. They bypassed rebel forces now reacting to the crisis, moving through areas depleted of enemy soldiers as units scrambled to deal with the catastrophe. When they returned to the Imperial camp, they found chaos of a different sort. Hugo's assaults on the first 2 rebel camps had been costly. He had taken both positions, but at terrible expense. 60 soldiers dead, twice that wounded. The medical tents overflowed. Hugo stood outside his command tent, blood-spattered and grim. He saw Alex approaching, and his expression turned murderous. "You," he snarled, "while my soldiers died taking these camps, you were running away." "I was destroying their supply depot," Alex replied calmly. "The mission succeeded. Their supplies are gone. They cannot hold their remaining positions. You left us to fight alone? Your scouts could have supported my assault, reduced our casualties. But no, you had to pursue your own glory, your own plan." Francis emerged from the command tent, drawn by the raised voices. "Commander Hugo, control yourself. Commander Alex's mission was approved and succeeded. The strategic situation has shifted dramatically in our favor." "At what cost?" Hugo gestured toward the medical tents. 60 good soldiers dead while he played games behind enemy lines. "Those soldiers died because you insisted on frontal assaults against prepared positions," Alex said, his voice still calm but harder now. "I offered a better way. You refused. Those deaths are not my fault." Hugo lunged. He was fast for his size, closing the distance before Alex could fully react. His fist caught Alex in the chest, a blow that lifted him off his feet and sent him crashing into the frozen ground. Ribs cracked from the impact. Alex rolled, fighting for breath, instinct bringing him back to his feet. Hugo came on, murder in his eyes. Other soldiers rushed forward to intervene, but Hugo was massive and enraged, brushing them aside. Dwight appeared, putting himself between Hugo and Alex. "Back down, Commander, now! Move, Scout, or I will go through you. Try it." More of Alex's scouts arrived, forming a barrier. Hugo's troops appeared from the other direction, creating a standoff. Weapons were drawn. What had been an argument was seconds from becoming a massacre. Francis's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Stand down, all of you, now!" The authority in her voice, backed by the power of the Empress herself, stopped the violence before it started. Soldiers on both sides lowered their weapons reluctantly. The tension remained, but the immediate crisis passed. Francis turned to Hugo. "You struck a fellow commander. That is grounds for court-martial. He caused the deaths of my soldiers. He followed orders. You are angry about your casualties, that is understandable. But you will control yourself, or you will be relieved of command. Choose." Hugo breathed hard, fists clenched. But slowly the rage on his face shifted to something else. Calculation, perhaps. He was too experienced to throw away his career in a moment of fury. He stepped back, forcing control. "I choose to serve the Empire," he said through gritted teeth. "Good. You are confined to your tent for the remainder of today. Tomorrow we will assess the situation with the rebel forces. Dismissed." Hugo left, his troops following. Alex's scouts remained, surrounding him protectively. Alex touched his chest gingerly. The ribs were definitely broken. Pain radiated with each breath. Francis approached. "How bad?" "Broken ribs. I will manage. Get medical attention. That is an order." She paused. "Hugo is dangerous, Commander. I will report this incident to the Empress, but until a decision is made about his conduct, you need to be careful." "I understand." Francis left. Dwight helped Alex to the medical tent, where a surgeon, a competent older male named Giles, examined the injury. 3 ribs cracked, maybe 1 broken through, Giles assessed. "You are lucky. If the broken rib had shifted inward, it could have punctured a lung. I will bind it, give you something for pain. You need rest. We are in the middle of a campaign. And you are no good to anyone if you collapse. Rest means limited activity for at least a week. Light duties only." "I am serious, Commander. Push too hard and you risk real damage." Alex agreed reluctantly. The pain was significant enough that he knew arguing would be foolish. Giles bound his chest tightly, gave him a bitter liquid to drink that dulled the pain but made his head feel foggy. He spent the rest of the day in his tent, receiving reports from his scouts. The rebel forces were indeed reacting to the loss of their depot. Their forward camps were being evacuated, troops pulling back toward their remaining supply sources. The strategic victory was complete, achieved with minimal casualties. Hugo's 2 camps, taken at such terrible cost, were now meaningless. The rebels had abandoned their remaining positions without a fight. The supply route was open. The mission was accomplished. But the cost had been high in ways beyond casualties. The rift between Hugo and Alex had become a chasm. And Alex now knew that Hugo was not just hostile, but actively dangerous. The next time Hugo struck, it might not be with fists. It might be with a knife in the dark or an arrow from unknown direction. Survival, Alex realized, was not just about defeating external enemies. Sometimes the greatest threats came from within your own ranks. The campaign concluded successfully. The supply route was secured. The rebel forces scattered. Francis sent detailed reports back to Dominessa, including the incident between Hugo and Alex. When they returned to the capital 3 weeks later, they were summoned separately to the throne room. Alex went first, still moving carefully from his healing ribs. Dominessa regarded him from her throne, her expression impossible to read. "You have made yourself indispensable, Commander Alex," she said without preamble. "Every mission succeeds. Casualties remain minimal. Your methods work." "Thank you, Your Majesty. But you have also made powerful enemies. Hugo is not the only officer who resents you. Many see your success as criticism of their own methods. They are correct to see it that way because that is exactly what it is. You show them a better path, and they hate you for it. I only do what I think is right, Alex said. I know. That is why you are valuable. You do not play politics, do not seek favor, do not compromise effectiveness for comfort. But it also makes you vulnerable. Hugo's attack was inexcusable, and he will be punished. But punishment will not eliminate the threat. He has supporters who see you as a threat to everything they represent. What would you have me do? Dominessa stood and descended from her throne, approaching Alex directly. Up close, her height was even more imposing, but Alex held his ground. Survive, she said simply. Continue doing what you do. Win battles, save lives, prove that change is possible. But watch your back, because those who resist change will try to eliminate you. I can offer some protection, but I cannot protect you everywhere, all the time. I understand. Do you? Because understanding and accepting are different things. You could leave, you know. Take a ship. Try to find your way to neutral territory, perhaps eventually back to Earth. Alex had thought about this, of course. In quiet moments, the thought of going home called to him like a siren song. But he looked at Dominessa and spoke truth. I could try, but this empire is at war, and my methods are saving lives. If I leave, more soldiers die. Good soldiers who have families, who deserve to go home. I cannot make that choice. Something like respect appeared in Dominessa's eyes. You are an unusual creature, Alex of Earth. Most beings, when given the choice between personal gain and duty to strangers, choose themselves. You choose the harder path. Not harder, just necessary. She smiled slightly. As I said, unusual. She returned to her throne. You are dismissed, Commander. Continue your work. I will deal with Hugo and those like him. Alex bowed and left. Outside the throne room, he found Eleonora waiting. How did it go? Well enough. She values my work, but warns that Hugo is not my only enemy. She is correct. Half the officer corps resents you. The other half respects you, but fears association with you will damage their careers. You are isolated, Commander. Then isolated is what I will be. It changes nothing. They walked together through the palace corridors, silent for a time. Finally, Eleonora spoke again. My brother serves on the Eastern Front. He writes that the situation there is desperate. 3 armies pushing into Imperial territory, overwhelming force, and our defenses are collapsing. Traditional methods are failing completely. They need help. Are you suggesting something? I am saying that if you volunteered for deployment there, it would be appreciated, and it would get you away from the capital, away from Hugo and his allies. Safer. Alex considered this. Running from enemies was not his preferred solution, but if he could do more good elsewhere, then perhaps it was the right choice regardless of motivation. How desperate is the situation? Very. If the Eastern Front collapses, the Empire loses 1/3 of its territory. Millions of people would fall under enemy control. It is our most critical theater. Then we should go. My scouts will come if I ask, and you are part of this unit now. If we deploy east, you deploy with us. Eleonora smiled. I was hoping you would say that. Then make it happen. Request deployment through proper channels. If Dominessa approves, we leave as soon as possible. The request was approved within 2 days. The Eastern crisis was indeed severe enough that Dominessa was willing to send her best commander, despite the political complications his absence might cause. Alex and his scouts now expanded to 150 soldiers through additional recruiting, prepared for deployment. The night before departure, a servant delivered a sealed package to Alex's quarters. Inside was a new weapon, clearly custom-made, a compound bow of remarkable design, using materials and engineering Alex had never seen. The draw weight was perfect for his strength, the balance exquisite. A note accompanied it, written in Dominessa's own hand. This empire needs you alive. Stay that way. Alex tested the bow, finding it far superior to the basic equipment he had been using. Someone had studied his technique, his physiology, his specific needs, and created something perfect for him. The gesture was more than practical. It was personal. Dominessa was investing in him, protecting an asset but also showing a level of care that went beyond pure utility. He slept little that night, mind already working through what he knew of the Eastern situation. 3 enemy armies, different factions with different tactics, all pushing into Imperial territory simultaneously. Complex, dangerous, perhaps impossible. Exactly the kind of challenge he seemed to find himself facing repeatedly. But that was fine. Impossible was where he did his best work. Dawn came, and with it, departure. The scouts assembled in formation, their gear loaded, their spirits high despite the difficulty ahead. They trusted Alex now, completely. They had seen him turn impossible situations into victories too many times to doubt. As they marched out of the capital, through streets still quiet in the early morning, Alex felt the familiar focus settling over him. The pain from his ribs was manageable, his mind clear, his purpose defined. There was work to do, battles to win, lives to save. Whatever came next, he would face it the way he faced everything, with calm calculation, stubborn determination, and the absolute refusal to quit, because he was human, and humans survived, always. The road east stretched before them, leading toward war and uncertainty and 1,000 new challenges. Alex walked it without hesitation, his scouts following, ready to prove once again that impossible was just another problem waiting for the right solution.